Then the intercom crackled, and I heard a voice I never expected in a million years. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Thomas Grant. Welcome aboard your flight to London, Heathrow." My breath caught in my throat. Tommy. Even after all these years, the sound of his voice hadn't changed. Steady, sure, and heartbreakingly familiar. "Hey, it's Tommy. Flying has always been my passion. Ever since I was a kid, watching planes take off from our small town airport, I knew I was destined to be up there one day. And now, after countless hours of training, sleepless nights, and more coffee than I care to admit, I've achieved my dream of becoming a commercial pilot. It's not as glamorous as it seems, though. Jet lag is brutal, and don't even get me started on missing holidays. But there's something about soaring at 3, 5, 0, 0, 0 feet that makes it all worthwhile. What's harder than piloting a plane, though, is managing everything else. My girlfriend, Annabelle, is the opposite of my structured, mile-high life. She's a whirlwind, spontaneous, vibrant, and magnetic. Her energy lights up every room she walks into, which is one of the reasons I fell for her. But sometimes her spark burns a little too brightly, especially when it comes to her friends. Take tonight, for example. I had just finished an exhausting 3-day stretch of flights. You'd think crossing time zones would get easier after a while, but it doesn't. Physically, I was home, but mentally, I was still in Singapore. All I wanted was a quiet night to recharge. I texted Annabelle earlier to let her know I'd be back around 7. She replied with, "Perfect timing, girls' night tonight," followed by a flood of emojis, wine glasses, hearts, and the dreaded party hat. Not again. As I walked through the door, the sound of laughter told me my evening wouldn't be as peaceful as I'd hoped. The apartment smelled like wine and some fancy dip, probably hummus. The lights were low, candles flickering on the coffee table, and Annabelle's voice rose above the chatter. "Tommy," she called out as I entered. She jumped up from the couch, grinning and holding a glass of wine. Her friends turned to look at me, their expressions a mix of mild curiosity and indifference. "Hey," I said, tossing my bag near the door. My voice felt automated, the same polite but distant tone I use when passengers disembark. Annabelle practically bounced over to me, planting a quick kiss on my cheek. "You're back," she said brightly, her excitement genuine. She always knew how to make me feel welcome. I nodded toward the living room. "Looks like a full house." "Just the girls," she said with a wink. "Wine, cheese, and plenty of opinions." I glanced at the group, a mix of faces I knew and didn't. Lisa was there. I remembered her knack for interrupting people mid-sentence. The others I couldn't place, but they all had the same vibe. Stylish, chatty, and just tipsy enough. I gave them a polite, "Hey, how's it going?" as I slipped off my shoes, already mapping out my escape to the bedroom. Wait, Tommy." Lissa's voice cut through the buzz as I reached for my suitcase. "You're a pilot, right?" I paused, one hand still on the handle. Yeah. "Why?" She leaned forward, wine glass in hand, smirking, just wondering how it feels to single-handedly destroy the planet. I blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me? You know, she said, swirling her wine like she was hosting a talk show. Aviation contributes what? 5% of global emissions? All those flights you take, think about the carbon footprint. The room went silent except for a few stifled giggles. I couldn't tell if they were laughing with her or at me, but it didn't matter. My exhaustion quickly turned into irritation. I tried to keep my tone light. Well, someone has to get people where they need to go. It's not like I'm flying for fun. She wasn't backing down. Still, don't you ever feel guilty? All that damage. It's like driving a gas guzzler, but worse. Annabelle stood nearby, sipping her wine and watching with a faint smile as this played out. Lisa, I said, my voice firmer now. I understand where you're coming from, but it's not that simple. The aviation industry is making strides. Fuel efficiency, sustainable aviation fuels, things like that. Lisa arched an eyebrow. Oh, so now the big corporations are the heroes? How convenient. And then the episode ended, and Manny burst out laughing and hugged me so hard. And just like that, my hope for a quiet night vanished. Hey, Annabelle here. It had been forever since we all got together like this. Just the girls, some wine, and, nay, our unfiltered opinions. Lisa and Maya were in rare form tonight, especially Lisa. She has this way of steering conversations into heated debates, like she's determined to solve the world's problems in one evening. I don't mind, though. I actually kind of love it. Our girls' nights always have a rhythm, some venting, a little gossip, and at least one intense discussion that leaves everyone energized. Tonight's hot topic, sustainability, or more specifically, how men fail to care about it. It all started innocently enough. We were lounging in the living room, wine flowing, when Tommy walked in, still in his uniform. He looked tired, but composed. Hey, babe, I greeted him with a smile. You're home early. Long story, he said, dropping his bag by the door. He kissed me quickly on the cheek and headed to the kitchen, probably for water. As soon as he disappeared, Lisa leaned in, her eyes sparkling mischievously. So, Annabelle, what's it like dating a pilot? You know, with the environmental impact and all. Maya snickered, and I rolled my eyes. Lisa, come on. He just got home. Don't scare him off already. But Lisa wasn't done. I'm serious. Aviation is one of the biggest contributors to climate change. Planes are just flying pollution machines. You're one to talk, I shot back, laughing. Didn't you fly to Bali last year for that yoga retreat? Lisa smirked. Douche. But that was a once-in-a-lifetime trip. Tommy's up there every day, pumping out carbon emissions like it's his job, which I guess it is. Everyone burst out laughing, and even I couldn't help but join in. It wasn't personal. Lisa was just being Lisa, pushing buttons to see how far she could go. Tommy re-entered the room then, holding a glass of water. He raised an eyebrow at the laughter. "What's so funny?" he asked. "Oh, nothing," Lisa said with a grin. "We were just discussing your impressive carbon footprint." He looked at me, his expression calm but questioning. I shrugged, trying to keep things light. "It's just Lisa being Lisa." Tommy didn't look amused, but before he could say anything, Maya chimed in. "You know, if men weren't so obsessed with conquering everything, land, air, space, maybe the planet wouldn't be in such a mess." Lisa's voice shifted to a more serious tone as she jumped in. "Exactly. Think about it. Most of the world's biggest issues, wars, pollution, deforestation, they all trace back to men and their obsession with control." "Whoa, whoa," Tommy said, raising a hand. "That's a pretty sweeping statement. Things aren't that black and white." "Oh, please," Lisa retorted. "Name one major global problem that wasn't caused by men." "I'll wait." The room filled with laughter again, and I found myself swept up in it. "She's got a point," I said, grinning at Tommy. "Men do seem to have a knack for causing chaos." Tommy shot me a look, not exactly angry, but clearly not amused either. "Annabelle, you can't be serious." "I'm just playing along," I replied with a dismissive wave, but the conversation was already picking up steam. Maya leaned forward, her eyes gleaming with exaggerated excitement. "You know what the world really needs? A planet without men, just women and sperm banks. Imagine how much better things would be." It sent us all into a fit of laughter. Even me. "Cheers to sperm banks," I joked, raising my glass. But Tommy didn't laugh. His jaw tightened, and his tone grew sharper. "Seriously? That's where this is headed? A world without men?" "Relax, Tommy," Lisa said, brushing him off. "We're just joking. Don't take it so personally." "I'm not taking it personally," he shot back, his voice firm. "I just don't appreciate being attacked the moment I walk through the door." The room fell quiet, the atmosphere shifting noticeably. I could see the tension in his posture, the way his grip on his glass had tightened. A part of me thought about stepping in to diffuse the situation, but I decided against it. He's a grown man, I thought. He can handle a little pushback. Instead, I laughed again, trying to keep the mood light. "Come on, Tommy," I said. "It's not that serious. We're just teasing you." But he didn't see it that way. His voice stayed calm, but there was a hard edge to it now. "Teasing, huh? Annabelle, do you even hear what's being said? You're laughing about getting rid of men entirely. How is that supposed to be funny?" "Oh, don't be so sensitive," I replied, rolling my eyes. But as the words left my mouth, I realized I'd crossed a line. The room felt different now. Quieter, heavier. Tommy didn't say anything else, but his silence spoke volumes. When I came home that night, I wasn't sure what I expected, but it certainly wasn't this. The tension in the air hit me the second I stepped inside. Annabelle greeted me with a bright smile, as if everything was normal. Her friends, though, were a different story. Lisa, one of her closest friends, wasted no time. "So, Tommy," she began, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "how's the environment treating you?" I just wanted a drink, not a lecture on climate change. "It's fine," I replied curtly, trying to avoid getting drawn in. But before I could even take a sip of water, she was at it again. "You know, every time you fly a plane, you're basically killing the planet, right?" she added, her tone a mix of judgment and mockery. I set my glass down, rubbing my temples. "Lisa, I get where you're coming from, but you're oversimplifying. The aviation industry is working hard to cut carbon emissions. There are new solutions in the works. It's not so black and white." But she wasn't listening. Maya, another of Annabelle's friends, chimed in. "Oh, come on, Tommy. We all know planes are terrible for the planet. You're part of the problem. You're literally enabling climate change." I felt my frustration rising. I'm not enabling anything. I'm doing my job. And it's not like I'm flying just to burn fuel for fun. The entire industry is working on sustainable fuels and hybrid planes. Things are changing. Lisa rolled her eyes dramatically. "Sustainable fuels, please. You're all the same. Just spinning things to make yourself feel better. The damage is already done." Annabelle sat there, watching the whole thing unfold, a glass of wine in her hand and a smirk on her face. At first, I thought she'd step in to lighten the mood or back me up, but she didn't. She just sat there, enjoying the show. I glanced at her, hoping she'd catch my eye and give me some sort of signal, but it was clear she wasn't on my side. Who needs enemies when your girlfriend is as entertained by the pylon as her friends? Then the conversation took a sharp turn. Maya, ever the dramatist, leaned back and declared, "You know, I read something the other day that got me thinking. Maybe the world really would be better without men. We could just use sperm banks to reproduce and leave all the mess behind." My jaw tightened. "What the hell?" I said with a sharp laugh, trying to keep things from boiling over. "That's ridiculous, Maya. Just because you're upset with how the world is doesn't mean men are to blame for everything." But Lisa jumped in again, feeding off the momentum. "No, seriously, think about it. Men have been the root of all problems for centuries. Wars, pollution, capitalism, it's all built on their greed." I shot a glance at Annabelle, trying to gauge her reaction, but she was laughing along with the others, completely unfazed. My heart sank. This wasn't just drunk girls joking around. It felt personal. "Ah, hold on," I said, my voice tightening. "So now it's all men's fault? We're all evil just because we built the world?" I'm trying to have a reasonable conversation, and all I'm hearing is this blame men for everything narrative. Maya's voice cut through the tension like a knife. "The thing is, Tommy, if it weren't for men, we wouldn't have all this pollution and destruction. It's time you guys took responsibility." I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. "You're oversimplifying everything," I said firmly. "You're treating an entire gender like we're all guilty of the same crime. It's not that simple. What about the women who add to the problem? I snapped. Are they off the hook just because they aren't men? Annabelle finally chimed in, but her tone wasn't exactly helpful. Well, Tommy, look at your job. It's part of the issue, too. Maybe you should rethink things. I was floored. I couldn't believe she was siding with them, laughing, even encouraging it. This wasn't playful anymore. The way she looked at me, almost like she pitied me, made my blood boil. Annabelle, seriously? What the hell? Are you really joining in on this? She took another sip of wine, her confidence clearly growing. I'm just saying, Tommy, you work in an industry that's one of the biggest contributors to climate change. Maybe it's something you should think about. Something snapped inside me. I stood up, slamming my glass down harder than I intended. You know what? I've had enough. I'm exhausted. I just got off a flight, and I don't need to be torn apart by you and your friends. Annabelle raised an eyebrow, unfazed. I live here too, you know. I have every right to invite my friends over. And I'm not ending the party just because you're upset. I felt like the walls were closing in. So, what, you're just gonna sit here, let them insult me, mock man, and laugh about it? And you're okay with that? I thought you were better than this. She didn't back down. Her eyes held a defiant glare. If you don't like it, maybe you should leave. That was it for me. I grabbed my bag, turned on my heel, and stormed out. She called after me, but I didn't care anymore. I needed air. I needed space. I checked into a hotel, and as I sank onto the bed, my mind was in chaos. Their voices echoed in my head. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and completely drained. How had things spiraled so quickly? I thought he'd calm down eventually. Tommy always needed time to cool off, and I was sure he'd realize the party was harmless fun. But 2 days later, when he walked through the door with that cold, determined expression, my stomach dropped. Tommy? Ah, I tried to sound casual, but the nervous edge in my voice betrayed me. He didn't reply. He headed straight to the bedroom and pulled a duffel bag from the closet. What are you doing? I asked, already dreading the answer. Packing, he said flatly, his tone measured and distant, correctly, not aptly. But then, where are you going? Where? My voice cracked as I watched him unzip the bag and begin grabbing clothes. I've already found a place. I'm moving out. Moving out? Are you serious? My voice rose, teetering between disbelief and desperation. Tommy, come on. It was just one night. You're really going to throw everything away over this? He paused, looking at me with an unreadable expression. One night? He said, his voice tight. Annabelle, your friends spent hours tearing me down. They mocked me, insulted my job, and trashed my entire gender. And you sat there, laughing along with them. They were drunk, Tommy. We all were. It wasn't serious, I protested. Not serious? His voice sharpened. Ha! They called me a climate criminal. They said men are the root of all evil. One of them even suggested the world would be better off without us. And you didn't just sit there. You laughed. You joined in. It was just banter, I said, trying to keep my tone steady. I didn't mean anything by it. His eyes narrowed, a flicker of hurt visible beneath his anger. Banter? That's what you call it? Watching me get attacked by people who clearly despise me, and men in general, and doing nothing to stop it? That's not banter, Annabelle. That's disrespect. I didn't think it was a big deal. You're overreacting, I said weakly. He threw another shirt into the bag, straightening up to face me. His expression was calm but cutting. If it's not a big deal, then you shouldn't have any problem cutting them off. What? I blinked, stunned. You can't be serious. They're my friends. And I'm supposed to be your partner, he said, his voice rising as his frustration boiled over. But you didn't defend me, not once. You stood with them. What does that say about where your loyalty lies? That's not fair, I said, my voice trembling as I felt the walls closing in. You can't make me choose. He shook his head, a bitter smile curling on his lips. I'm not making you choose, Annabelle. You already did. That night, when you let them attack me, when you laughed and joined in, you showed me exactly where I stand. Tears threatened to spill, but I forced myself to hold them back. I love you, I whispered. Isn't that enough? He looked at me for a long moment, and for a second I thought he might change his mind, but then he shook his head, slinging the bag over his shoulder. Love without respect isn't love. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have to think twice about standing up for me or cutting off people who clearly despise me. But you didn't, so no, Annabelle, it's not enough. Tommy, please, I begged, stepping closer, my voice cracking. I'll fix this. I'll talk to them. Don't bother, he said, his voice eerily calm but final. I'm done, Annabelle. I deserve better than someone who thinks it's okay to humiliate me for sport. I slid under the rail and followed him onto the bridge. And with that, he walked out, leaving me standing there in stunned silence. My mind raced through everything I'd said, everything I hadn't done. The weight of my choices hit me like a tidal wave. I'd let my friend's drunken taunts spiral out of control. I laughed when I should have defended him. I took him for granted. And now I'd lost him. I tried calling him later that night, but his number was blocked. A week later, I heard through mutual friends that he'd moved on. New apartment, new life, no room for me. I was left behind, replaying every moment, every word, wishing I could take it all back, even the shadows of things he'd said. But I knew he would never forgive me. I felt so isolated. I turned to the pool for company. He visited me and told me that no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I wished it, I would never forget that he never forgave me. 10 years later, I stared out the tiny, plain window, watching the clouds drift by like ghostly reminders of a life I'd thrown away. My 6-year-old son dozed against my arm, the steady hum of the engines oddly soothing, though my thoughts were anything but calm. This wasn't a vacation. London was an escape, a desperate attempt to rebuild after a divorce that had left me drained and alone. Then the intercom crackled, and I heard a voice I never thought I'd hear again. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Thomas Grant. Welcome aboard your flight to London Heathrow." My breath caught. Tommy. His voice was just as steady, just as sure as I remembered, and just as painfully familiar. The moment we landed, I couldn't help myself. I craned my neck, searching for him. And then I saw him, walking through the terminal in his crisp uniform, confident as ever. But he wasn't alone. A stunning woman walked beside him, poised and graceful, her hand linked with his. A little boy, maybe 5 or 6, ran ahead, his laughter echoing through the terminal. I swallowed hard, my chest tightening. He looked happy, settled, a husband, a father, a man with everything I'd thrown away, the perks, the vacations, the life of adventure. I'd traded it all for fleeting pride and friends who disappeared when things got hard. I turned away, tears stinging my eyes. Tommy had been right all along, and now I was just a single mom flying coach, burdened with nothing but regret.